Good morning, everybody. Welcome into To The Point. We're all doing well on this Tuesday. We have a lot to dive into today, stuff we missed yesterday from over the weekend, some stories last night in the NHL, the NBA, where the Clippers are a disaster. We're going to touch on that today. A firing in college football. And I just want to tell you guys the amount of money that is being thrown around in college football, the coaches, it's quite alarming. So I thought I'd bring that up today. But we're going to start with the Denver Broncos, Buffalo Bills game last night in Orchard Park, New York. The Buffalo Bills are 5-5, and I feel as though they should be happy that they're 5-5. They're a team that gets in their own way. They are a team that always have a constant distraction, and they find ways to lose games, flat out. Last night, Russell Wilson, I thought, had a good game. He played well. He didn't turn the ball over himself. He did not throw for 200 yards, but he was accurate. Sean Payton and his offense, we're going to limit Russell Wilson. We're going to let our running game take over. Russ is going to be a distributor when he needs to be, but it's not let Russ cook. That's not the nucleus of their offense. At times it's very pedestrian. At times it's very non-threatening. But it's gotten the Denver Broncos back to 4-5, and they, at the very least, will be in the playoff hunt towards the tail end of the regular season. But Denver shouldn't have won that game last night. Denver is not a better team than the Buffalo Bills. Denver has limitations. They play hard, sure. They've rebounded from the misery in week 1, 2, 3. But Buffalo had that game. Signed, sealed, delivered. Buffalo went into the game as a 7.5 point favorite, and they lose the game outright. It started from the beginning. First play of the game, James Cook carry, he fumbles the football, which leads to a field goal. Next drive, Bills are running the football well. Latavius Murray running it down the throats of the Broncos, which is a smart strategy. The Denver Broncos gave up almost 300 rushing yards to the Miami Dolphins, if you remember. One of the worst rush defenses in the NFL. But on that drive, Josh Allen throws a ball through the hands of Gabe Davis. Should have been a catch. And it ends up in the lap of Jeffrey Simmons. Another turnover for the Buffalo Bills. We go through. It's almost halftime. Buffalo has scored 1 touchdown. They get a 2-point conversion. They get a stop. They're going to have the ball to see if they get some points to cut it down before the half. They are down 12-8 at this point. And what happens? Josh Allen going through his progressions. Oh, scratch that. He doesn't go through his progressions. He's staring towards the far side of the field, to his left. His eyes only go on that wide receiver, and he throws the ball. It's a horrible interception. It cannot happen. The first one was not his fault. This was 100% his fault because he did not look off the wide receiver. There was no, I wonder where he's going to throw the ball. Is he going to move? He only looked that way. He didn't go through a second, third, fourth progression. He had made his mind up. The Denver Broncos got a read on him. Interception, which leads to points. 3 first-half turnovers for the Buffalo Bills. That's bad. Second half, turnover on downs on their first possession. Josh Allen scrambling to his right, throws it to nobody in the vicinity. Later in the game, Josh Allen looking to hand the ball off to James Cook. Before James Cook is even there to get the ball in his belly, Josh Allen has already dropped the ball. That's recovered by Denver. Those are 5 turnovers. 5 turnovers from the Broncos and a turnover by the Bills and a turnover on downs. And yet, here's the thing. The Bills had the lead 22-21 because the pedestrian offense, because the Broncos don't take chances. But the Bills had the lead. Broncos get the ball at the end of the game. They drive down the field, and Russell Wilson, to his credit, puts his team in field goal position. Will Lutz comes on. He missed an extra point earlier. And he misses a field goal. Off the upright, no good. As time expired, that would signal a win for the Buffalo Bills, one they did not deserve. But Buffalo's defense had 12 men on the field, which means a 5-yard penalty. Goes from a 41-yard field goal to 36. And this time, Will Lutz puts it through the uprights, and the Denver Broncos walk away with the victory. It's hard to comprehend what went down last night and how they could have played that poorly. Josh Allen was not good. Stephon Diggs was not involved. They, at times, refused to run the football. You're killing the opposition. They can do nothing to stop you. The Buffalo Bills had 192 rushing yards last night. Season high. Still not enough, in my opinion. They threw the ball 26 times. Ran it almost 36. Josh Allen shouldn't have thrown the ball 26 times. He couldn't complete a fucking pass. James Cook had 9.1 yards per carry last night. Latavius Murray, 7.6 yards per carry. And yet, you don't do that more. You let Josh Allen screw the game up. Gabe Davis can't make a catch. The Buffalo Bills are a fraud team. If the New York Jets had a quarterback, the New York Jets would be ahead of the Buffalo Bills in the standings because they're better than them. Buffalo has a lot of good players, a lot of guys that you'd want in your team. You look at Josh Allen, you go, that's the prototype. He's huge. He's got a big arm. He's athletic. There's nothing he can't do on the football field. But nobody has more turnovers since the start of last season than Josh Allen, 34. Nobody has more interceptions than 2018 when Josh Allen entered the league than Josh Allen. He came into the NFL as a turnover machine, and for about a year and change, he had mitigated that part of his game, but eventually it's come back to the surface. The defense is banged up. They're missing key pieces. Von Miller, whatever injury he had last year, that torn ACL, he's not the same guy. Doesn't have the same explosion. Not the same weapon that we thought he was. But they played okay last night. Didn't allow Denver to kill them. Cortland Sutton made an incredible catch in the back of the end zone. That was decent coverage. That's just an amazing catch that few guys can do. You didn't allow some field goals. Damar Hamlin got into the game. He made a tackle. That was a great moment. But defense gives up 24 points. in a game where Denver hardly had the ball. They couldn't get anything going. They turned the ball over themselves. That should be an easy win. The defense played well last night. They got at Russell Wilson. They made his life tough. This is just a team that does not gel. Sean McDermott got Buffalo out of the misery. He became head coach and he got them to the playoffs with Tyrod Taylor. And they've been in the playoffs every year since. Winning division titles, usurping the Patriots as the kings in the AFC East. Holding off the surging Dolphins, beating the Patriots in a playoff game. Having one of the best playoff games I've seen in my life with the Kansas City Chiefs during that shootout. But since that moment, where it was a divisional playoff game, not a championship, they've never been to an AFC championship game. Never had a Super Bowl appearance. It has been negative, worse, and it's just continued to spiral. To me, the Bills are going to play out their season. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. With the remaining schedule, I don't see it happening. There's a lot of good teams in the AFC, and there's flat out teams with easier schedules, and the Bills are just, they're not a good team. They close hosting the Jets, at the Eagles, bye week, at the Chiefs, host the Cowboys, at the Chargers, host Patriots, go to Miami. I don't know how many games they win. Likely beat the Jets. You get the Patriots win in there. Those are the only two ones I give in 100% lock. That's 7 wins. 7 wins is not getting you to the postseason. In Kansas City, there are times you watch them and go, they should run the football more. They should run the ball. They shouldn't just rely on Mahomes. And occasionally I get frustrated watching them because I go, that's just a stupid way to approach it. I have the same feeling with Buffalo. Or if you're not going to run the football, how about some motion? Quick screens, guys get them in space, moving before the snap, which they never do. They have the least motion of any offensive team in the NFL. So that it's not just a Josh Allen fest, because quite frankly, he's not good enough to do it. Mahomes is a different animal. Mahomes is better than Josh Allen. Anybody who thought Josh Allen was better than Patrick Mahomes doesn't know football. And Andy Reid in that system, they can go to Patrick Mahomes how many times a game, and he can throw 50 times in a game if they need him to, and they'll win it. More often than not, the Bills are going to lose that game. Just not going to work out. I feel when Josh Allen, there's this need, there's this, whatever the reason is, whether it's Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen himself, that he has to be the man. He has to be the focal point. He has to touch the ball so many times per game, and it's a detriment to their team. It's not a one-man show. It's not Josh Allen and a bunch of guys. Stephon Diggs is a good player. James Cook was a high second-round pick, a goddamn national champion at Georgia. They just extended Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane, their general manager, which makes this all the more difficult. I don't think Sean McDermott's a bad head coach. He was a great defensive mind before getting a head coaching opportunity, and I think he's done a good job with Buffalo because he's turned that around, and they are a consistent contender. But the window on this team is closing. I mentioned Von Miller. He's spent. Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle. There's a lot of guys towards the back end of their career. How long is Stephon Diggs going to remain in Buffalo after the way this season's going? With the losing and just everything and Josh Allen's inconsistent play? I don't think the Pagulas want to pay a bunch of coaches and a bunch of GMs because they've run their hockey team really cheap for a long time. However, I do think they care more about the football team more than they do the hockey team because, well, football makes more money, which is important. And Bills Mafia is they're dedicated until the end. But sometimes a coach is really good at developing something. He's gotten you to a certain point, but he can't win you the Super Bowl. He can't win that big game. St. Louis needed to turn to Chief Craig Berube to get it done. Peter Laviolette comes to mind in Carolina when Carolina broke through and won in 06. The NFL, you can have good teams, build good Pete Carroll was a head coach in New England back in the day, if you can recall. And he actually built some good teams. They weren't always bad. Bill Belichick came to New England and it changed the fortunes. They went from a good team that competed to a team that won Super Bowls and had the greatest dynasty in sports history. Josh Allen is still in the peak of his career. So any coach, any coordinator, I think is going to be excited to jump on that boat, if you will, to have that toy, that chess piece to play with. Now, I think he's problematic. He makes a lot of dumb mistakes. But I think you're going to take a chance on Josh Allen that having some of the bad quarterbacks that are currently in the NFL. There are some teams where you know they're going to fire a coach. I think Eberflus in Chicago, no matter how the remainder of the season goes, he's going to be looking for work. I think Riverboat Ron Rivera is 100% getting fired in Washington. Those two I would put at 100%. FanDuel, lock it down, put your house on it. Other than those two, you might look around the league. If the Chargers season goes awry, just finally get fired. I'd throw Sean McDermott into that mix. Brandon Beane they've been tied at the hip forever. They've built the team, they put the pieces together. But sometimes it's ownership saying, we don't care. We know you like him, but he's not getting us to the victory. We win division titles, but we can't beat the Broncos on a Monday night at home. We lost to the Jets after Aaron Rodgers blows out his Achilles. We should have lost to the New York Football Giants, but the refs helped us. We lost to the 2-8 Patriots, who stink. They have the rest of the year to turn this around and make the postseason, but I don't think they're going to. The Buffalo Bills are going to miss because they're a team that just makes too many mistakes. A team that can't get out of their own way. I believe if you're on FanDuel, you want to place a bet, just a team to make the playoffs, I think the Broncos have a much better chance than the Bills, even though the Broncos are 4-5. And the Broncos aren't perfect. I started the show talking about them. They're as adequate as it gets. They're so conservative and they don't take chances, which won't win you anything down the line. It'll win you a few games here and there. Might get you to the playoffs. But you're not beating Kansas City. You're not beating the great teams just nickel and diming. But this offseason, Sean McDermott signed contract extensions through, and GM Brandon Beane signed contract extensions through 2027. 4 more years of salary on a guy. That's hard to give up. Because you got to pay another coach to come in. I'm trying to find how much he gets paid per year, but it's not on here. Not on Spots Track. Here we go. Sean McDermott makes around $8.5 million annually with the Buffalo Bills. Whew. He's one of the highest paid coaches in the NFL. So 8.5 for 2024, for 2025, for 2026, and 2027. Not an easy pill to swallow. But Buffalo might have to do it if this season doesn't go well. Because since getting to that divisional round, it seems to get worse year by year. Divisional round against Cincinnati last year, and they got absolutely crushed, embarrassed in that game. And now their trajectory this season is to miss the playoffs entirely. No good. $8.5 million is a lot of money to pay to somebody who's not working for you. Absolutely. But it's nothing compared to what's happening in college football. Sunday morning, the Texas A&M Aggies fired their head coach, Jimbo Fisher. Jimbo had been there for 4 years. Signed a 10-plus year deal with Texas A&M. He had won a national championship at Florida State with Jameis Winston. And Texas Station was looking for a big hire after firing Kevin Sunland. Johnny Manziel had left. The program had all kind of money. And according to Forbes and other listings out there, Texas A&M is the biggest college football program in North America. They bring in, they pay their coach. They were paying Jimbo a ton of money. They just have money after money at Texas A&M. But Jimbo Fisher had no success. He was great at recruiting. He'd bring in players, but the thought is he can't develop them. He never recruited a great quarterback at Texas A&M. He lost 4 games last year, and they're already at 4 losses this year. And the boosters and the university met Saturday and decided, you know what, we're going to have to let Jimbo go. Because this is not the type of football we need to be playing in the SEC. Texas and Oklahoma are coming to our conference. It's only getting more difficult. So we need to get better. This is after following Saturday where Jimbo was the coach and Texas A&M beat Mississippi State 51-10. Here's how it works. This is how crazy money is in college football. So Jimbo Fisher's fired. Within the next 60 days, he will make $20 million, or 20% of his remaining deal. Following that, until 2031, Jimbo Fisher will be making $7.1 million a year to not coach, to not recruit. So in total is a $77 million buyout for Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M. Now, this happens in the NFL. Josh McDaniels is going to make 40 plus million from the Raiders to not coach over the next 4 years. But here's another caveat in college football. Jimbo Fisher is going to make 77 million. He's going to get all that he signed for. Like I said, 20 million over the next 60 days. So just after Christmas, he's going to be getting a large check. But if another team, if another program around college football looks at Jimbo and says, you know what? He's one of the best recruiters in the nation, which he is. Maybe he can come recruit. We can get somebody else to be the head coach of the team. We'll pay him $5 million a year to come do that job. He will make $5 million on top of all the other money he's making. In these other sports, you do not get another salary if you are under contract with, if you're being paid by another team in the sport. That's not how it works in NCAA. So he can get a job tomorrow. He can get a job tomorrow and still be getting paid that money. He's 58. Maybe he never coaches again. But these guys always seem to stick around. Nick Saban's still coaching. He's 70 years old. Kirby Smart at Georgia, he just continue to find ways to do it. These guys never want to retire. The money's good. It's a crazy job, but they love it. But a horrible tenure for Jimbo Fisher, and they let him go. So now the thought is, a booster just gave Texas A&M $160 million. A lot of that's going to Jimbo Fisher, but they want to hire a new coach. Who's it going to be? It's going to be a big name. It's not going to be somebody that will get people just be like, that's okay. It's going to be a hire that has some brand name to it. 3 names came to mind for me. Number 1, Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer, former head coach at Utah, Florida, The Ohio State, multiple-time national champion winner, one of the best college football coaches in the history of the sport. The last time we saw Urban, he was in the NFL, and it went horrible when he was coaching the Jacksonville Jaguars. But Urban Meyer has been working at Fox, doing some big noon kickoff with them. He's 59. He can recruit as good as anybody. It didn't work in pro, but he's a college football coach. He knows how to work with kids. He knows how to make it work. Had that Florida team with Bible Belt, Tim Tebow, and Aaron Hernandez, and all those crazy guys. Then goes to the Ohio State with Ezekiel Elliott and that group, and they win a national championship there. He can recruit. They will have the money to bring in great talent at Texas A&M. If he wants to come back and coach, he always said he doesn't want to. I don't believe him because the guy's constantly lying. I think it's going to be hard for him to say no because they're going to throw a lot of money at him and give him the keys to the car. Second name, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. The back half of this season has gone horrible for Deion Sanders. They haven't won a game since week 4. They lost to Arizona on Saturday, and they need to win their final 2 games of the regular season to be bowl eligible. But Colorado had 1 win last year, and they have 4. I think they're going to win this weekend, so they'll at least have 5. Maybe they'll end the season with 6 wins. He can recruit at Colorado, but he can only do it to a certain extent because they do not have the money that Texas A&M has for name, image, and likeness and things of that nature. He would have all the resources. He would have an easier time recruiting people saying, hey, young men that live in Texas, come play at Texas Station. Stay in state. Your parents can come see you anytime they want. play in the stadium that Johnny Manziel played in. It sells itself. You got to say, hey, come play in Colorado, in Boulder, where the weather sucks. And we're going to the Big 12. You're going to play in the SEC. You're going to be playing against the best kids in the nation. Scouts are going to be watching games, looking at you. This is the pipeline to the NFL. Texas A&M can take Shador. Shador can transfer from Colorado, play quarterback at Texas A&M. Shiloh can transfer, play safety. So you get all three Sanders on Texas A&M, except Prime would have more resources to build a better program. I don't think he's going to leave Colorado, but I think Texas A&M should explore it. I think they should give him an offer. Talk about it. Because he can help this team. And one thing about Dion is he brings good coaches with him. He's not just, oh, I'm the coach, I know everything. That's not the way he's approached it at Colorado, and I appreciate that about him. And the third name is Kalen DeBoer. Kalen DeBoer is the head coach currently at Washington. They're undefeated. They have 2 losses over the past 2 combined seasons. He's taken Michael Penix and turned him into a Heisman candidate. Again, playing in Washington in the Pac-12, and that team has completely become a factor. They go undefeated. They will likely be in the college football playoff this year. We see this happen where a head coach has success at one program and he gets an opportunity at another. Cincinnati, they get to the Final Four, and Wisconsin comes and scoops up their head coach and says, our program's been going nowhere. We need you to come in and turn it around. You did it at a small school. Come do it in the Big Ten. Kalen DeBoer might be a name that kind of flashes. I can see Texas A&M calling Lane Kiffin, who's at Ole Miss, and saying, hey, want to come here? We know you just signed a huge extension, but it doesn't matter. We'll pay you more money. We can pay you more money than Ole Miss does. If I had to place a bet today, I think it's going to be Urban Meyer. I think Urban Meyer will be the head coach at Texas A&M. But the amount of money, anybody who ever thought that college football was an amateur sport is a crazy person. This is as big a business as anyone, as any of them. College football is a bigger business than the NHL, than Major League Baseball. The amount of money these institutions make, and what's crazy, they know what they're doing. They have boosters coming to pay them money because they still technically can't pay the players. So all their money they're making from gate revenue and tailgates and TV contracts, they're pocketing themselves. Sure, you have to give out a little money to a scholarship every now and then. Big fucking whoop. Pocket lint for these big schools. Just craziness. It's also the rumor Urban Meyer could take over for Jim Harbaugh at Michigan because of their scandal that's ongoing. But I don't know if Jim Harbaugh is going to leave Michigan. I don't know if he seems pretty loved there right now. They're doing it for him. He's trying to make it a sob story. And it's a load of crap. But it doesn't matter. They love him in Michigan. They're undefeated. They beat Penn State. They play Maryland this weekend, and then they face Ohio State a week from Saturday in the biggest game of their season. They win that game, they'll likely get Iowa in the Big Ten Championship, and they'll be in the college football playoff once again. And Michigan, under Jim Harbaugh, would have beaten Ohio State for the 3rd straight season, which is a big deal. Tell you who won't be getting the Texas A&M job. James Franklin, who's the head coach at Penn State. No offense. No dynamic plays, no motion. Michigan ran the ball 32 straight times in the second half, and yet Penn State could still couldn't win that game. Couldn't stop them. Couldn't make an adjustment. James Franklin for you. 83 win percentage against every team that's not ranked inside the top 10 in his coaching career. Which basically makes him a fraud because he's never going to get you over the top. But that's the college football update. We got 2 weeks of regular season left, and we got conference championship games. And then it'll be bowl season before we get to the Final Four. Which is such a... November 14th. We're almost at that time where people want to put a Christmas tree up, which, by the way, way too early. Way too early. I think the optimal day to put a tree up is like December 20th. Maybe December 19th. I think a fair compromise is 1 week of the tree. 19th, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 25. You get a week of the tree. And then it goes away. I think that's perfectly fine. I mean, I'm not going to put a tree up, but I know my mother will have one probably early December, which is way too early. Now, I am a Scrooge, and she's more festive and likes holidays and that crap more than me. But I'll tell you, I was out on a run the other day, and I saw a Christmas tree up, lights on, middle of the afternoon, and this was before Remembrance Day. That's not cool. That's just poor behavior. That can't happen. What are we doing? Wait till after Remembrance Day. And is Christmas all that great? Are you that excited that we have to get the fucking Christmas music on already? Ugh, it's so dreadful. There's a few good Christmas movies, not many. There's a few. Christmas Vacation, great, classic. Chevy Chase, love it. Elf's okay. The Grinch I like less and less as the years go on, but don't tell my mother that. Other than those three, nothing else really. I can't think of one. I hate Polar Express. That movie's awful. Christmas Story, never even seen it. Don't even know. But Christmas tree's up already, November 14th. My God. I just hope there's no snow at Christmas. Then I get the real win. But wait to see on that one. Let's pivot to the NHL. Last night, the Edmonton Oilers stepped on the ice for the first time under new head coach Chris Knobloch. Former coach, a head coach of the Hartford Wolfpack, was a head coach of Connor McDavid in Erie in the Ontario Hockey League. Edmonton gets the win over the Islanders 4-1. They now on a 2-game winning streak. Leon Draisaitl had a 4-point night. McDavid had 2 points. All was well in the world. I watched the whole game. What I will say, Chris Knobloch is going to have to do something about the defense. And what I would do if I was him is I'd work with Matthias Ekholm and go, why are you panicking with the puck? Why every time you get it on your stick, it's as if you're playing hot potato. It's as if it's lava that you can't hold it because it's going to burn your hand. You are our best defensive defenseman. The puck is on your stick. Make a good play with it. Don't just throw it up the boards. No, but on the only goal scored last night by the New York Islanders, Matthias Ekholm had 2 chances to make a good play, and he made 2 bad ones. Throws it up the boards to an Islander player, circles around, comes back to him, throws up the opposite board. Again, nobody there to cover. They turn around, Matt Barzal puts in the back of the net. Matthias Ekholm turned their season around last year when he arrived because of his just intelligence, playing the game smart, not doing too much, blocking shots, his ability to play good defensive hockey. He's now playing with Evan Bouchard, who is the king of do the wrong thing at the wrong time. It can't be two guys. Because you've been having that with Darnell Nurse and Cody Ceci, where Nurse will step up on a 2-on-2 in the neutral zone, get blown by, and then it's a 2-on-1, and Cody Ceci doesn't know how to handle it, and it's in the back of the net. Or Darnell Nurse will miss his defensive responsibility, and before you know it's in the back of the net again. So you can't have two pairs making the same mistakes, having the same nucleus, the same identity. So if I'm Paul Coffey, who they brought down from the booth, I'm working with Matthias Ekholm today. Have a practice. They play tomorrow against the Kraken. But at practice, I'm just working on breakouts. Go back to the fundamentals with this team. Let's work on breakouts. You have somebody coming down on you. You do that drill where you dump the puck in the corner and the defense has to make a play with the puck. Work on that. Because Matthias Ekholm is too good to be playing the way he is. The Oilers won last night, but he was no good. And you get a win, you're happy about it, but you're also playing against the Islanders, who might be the least creative offensive team in the NHL. They don't create scoring chances. They don't have a whole lot of firepower. They play a bland, mundane style. And they try to limit opportunities while they've scored 2 goals or less in 7 out of their 14 games. 50% of their games, they're not scoring more than 2 goals. You're not going to win many games over the course of the season. That's not a recipe that's going to get you to the postseason. Draisaitl was a frustrated player for a long time. He took that 10 last Monday. But he gets 4 points. He gets a goal. You saw the relief on his face. To me, the Oilers aren't dead because you have the 2 best players in the league. Still worry about Stuart Skinner. Jack Campbell's in the American League and hasn't exactly been great since going down there. But Draisaitl and McDavid are the lightning rods. If Evander Kane and Zach Hyman can play well, that power forward game that we know they're capable of, this team can claw back into the mix. The hopes of winning the division are over, of having home ice advantage, things of that nature. And it's not going to be easy for the Oilers. Currently, they're only a point back of the Calgary Flames in the Pacific. They're 4 back of the Kraken with 2 games in hand. They have a lot of work to do. Absolutely. They need to go on a run. They need to hope for other teams to struggle. But if I'm the Edmonton Oilers, I'm looking at the Kings, who they're 10 points back. Look at the wild card situation. Where currently they are 6 points out of a wild card spot. St. Louis and the Ducks currently occupy the wild card spots in the Western Conference. I mean, the Minnesota Wild haven't been much better than the Edmonton Oilers. And they were a playoff team last year. Minnesota's 5-8-2. 1 more win than the Oilers. Their goaltending has been putrid. They're missing defensemen. Jared Spurgeon, their captain's been out for a minute. That's apparent that they miss him dearly. Having to acquire Zach Bogosian to come in and play. Brock Faber, my guy, I think has been really, really good, but he's playing 23 minutes a night as a rookie. It's a lot. They're asking a lot of him. Jacob Middleton, Again, a good player, but he hasn't been that good. And they're not scoring goals either. Matthew Boldy, kind of gone quiet for him. Kaprizov's point per game, he's been fine, but he's not getting a whole lot of help outside of that. Joel Eriksson. They need guys to step up. They need some players to score some goals, and they're not getting it currently. Injuries, bad goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury gave up 8 goals on Sunday to the Dallas Stars. So the Edmonton Oilers have openings. Seattle, playoff team last year, outside looking in right now. Preds are bad. Blackhawks are not a good team. Bedard's been fantastic. But the rest of the team is not good. Coyotes have been competitive. They're 7-6-1. Ducks are at 8-6. But the Western Conference is full of teams that just, quite frankly, aren't that good. The Calgary Flames with Nikita Zadorov. He's requested a trade. He did it after the game on Friday against the Maple Leafs, which is odd timing. But they're not just going to acquiesce to him. They're not going to ship him out because he wants to. I think he'll be traded by the end of the year because I think the Calgary Flames know who they are. They were lucky to get a point against the Maple Leafs on Friday night. They only got that point because the Maple Leafs gave it to them. The Maple Leafs' poor defensive play and their lack of missing their no attention to detail cost them points. Having a 4-1 lead and giving up 3 goals to a shit team, that's going to happen when you play defense the way that you do. They won Saturday, great. I watched UFC on Saturday. Friday night, they lost that game, and they gave up a point in that game because lack of attention to detail. But Calgary, they don't have any attention to detail. I think Zadorov's point and I saw his agent Dan Milstein make this point, that the best defenseman on the team doesn't play enough minutes. I don't disagree with him. I think Zadorov's as effective as any defenseman on that team because I think Calgary is full of defensemen that are just mediocre. Rasmus Andersson was the hope of being a star, air quotes, on the back end. He isn't. He's a good player, but is he a number 1 defenseman? No. Zadorov's physical, he can move, he's big. I think he's everything you'd want in a player. I think he'd fit well in the Toronto Maple. I think they need him, quite frankly. They need him so that a 40-year-old Mark Giordano doesn't have to step in and fight a guy. When I was telling this to my parents over the weekend, you're not getting Nikita Zadorov for pennies. You're not getting him for a bag of chips. It's going to be, Nikita Zadorov, he's a depth defenseman. We're going to get him for, we'll throw in Nick Robertson and a conditional 7th. You're not getting that. They're not even taking the call. Little Nick Robertson's had a good little run here. They're not picking up that phone call. I'm telling you, Nikita Zadorov being traded to Toronto, it's a high pick or it's one of their top 2 prospects, which would be Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton. Perhaps Calgary wants a defenseman and they'll take Topi Niemela, but it's one of those 3 players or a top pick. And they might go, well, that's a lot to get, but that's the price of doing business. Because then New Jersey might want him. New Jersey might say, okay, we'll take Zadorov. We need him. We've had a weird start. We've had some injuries. But Calgary is going to be a seller. Calgary is going to be behind Edmonton when the season's over. I think Calgary is just a bad team. Simple as that. The Canadian Power Index, I think Montreal could finish ahead of the Calgary Flames easily. Montreal has more soul, more heart to them than the Calgary Flames. I don't see it from them. I don't see a fight. I don't. You're never going to see it from Huberdeau. He's one of the most important players on the team, so maybe that kind of skews my read on the team. But I don't see a whole lot of guys that are fighting for space. You at least you watch the Montreal Canadiens, and they're not a skilled team. They're not, but they give it everything they have every night. They're tied with the Tampa Bay Lightning for the final wildcard spot. They have as many points as New Jersey, many more points than Buffalo, more points than the Pittsburgh Penguins, than the Islanders, than the Sens, than the Blue Jackets. That's impressive to me. 2 points back in Detroit. They compete every night. 7-6-2. Beat Boston over the weekend, and you lose to Vancouver. Everybody does, seemingly. And I'm funny I bring that up because the Flames play Montreal tonight. Cole Caulfield's the overtime. He's a hero in overtime. He's a fantastic 4-on-4 player. Caden Gooley, one of my favorites, gets an overtime winner. But things can happen. I mean, looking at it, Carolina is 5 points back of the New York Rangers, and the Rangers have a game in hand. Carolina averages 4 shots per first period, which is the worst in the NHL. They're slow starters. They've had all kind of goalie troubles. Freddie Anderson's got blood clots. There's a lot of weird stuff happening in the NHL. Washington Capitals are third in the Metro, and Ovi's only got 4 goals. And they're an old team, and Backstrom isn't. There's just craziness. 7-4-2. Head of New Jersey, who do have games in hand, but again, doesn't matter. Since Jack Hughes has been out, New Jersey hasn't exactly been a dangerous team. Maple Leafs are behind Detroit, behind the Florida Panthers, who have been quietly very good. Without Sam Bennett, without Montour, without Ekblad, they've had a great start to the season without Spencer Knight, who's still in the American League. For Toronto, they'll be keeping an eye on Zadorov, but to me, the start to this season for Bill Nylander has been nothing short of amazing. He has been as good as Austin. He has more points than Austin Matthews. He's been their most dynamic player. He's been their best player night in, night out. I think the Nylander-Tavares line, that tandem, has been better than Matthews and Marner. And that's saying something because Matthews has 13 goals. But Matthews has 2 hat tricks and multiple games with 2+ goals. When he's not getting 2 to 3 goals a night, he gets none. Nylander and Tavares, every night, they have something happen. They contribute. Their line goes. If this season continues to go the way that it's going for him, Maple Leafs are in Sweden this week. He'll get to play in front of likely his family. He's going to be making more than 8.5 or 8.8, whatever they want to give him. The number is starting with a 10 in it. Whether people like it or not, that's what it's going to be. Maybe it won't be in Toronto, and that's the decision that the Leafs management will have to make. Is he worth that? The way he's playing currently, he is. And he's been their best postseason player the last 3 to 4 years. Dynamic, brings it every night. I think he's a more chippy player. He plays harder in his own zone than he has in past seasons. Bill Nylander is chugging along. Two guys that have done themselves a lot of good to start the season. Elias Pettersson in Vancouver, who needs a contract after this year, and William Nylander. Both playing fantastic. Both have been the best player on their respective teams. And Vancouver's been better than Toronto, but they're not losing because of Bill Nylander. But here's the thing. If I'm the Maple Leafs and he's going to leave, I would trade him this year for an elite defenseman. But you got to try to win. It's crazy, but I still would consider it. Because the Maple Leafs aren't, if they keep Nylander in this core, they're not winning a Stanley Cup. They're not going to. They might get to a Stanley Cup final, maybe. But if you could go out there and find a great defenseman, it might be worth it. Brett Pesce might not be enough at this point. He might not be a good enough player anymore. It's fine. I still think Pesce's pretty good, personally. Would Roman Josi, again, an older guy, but would he be enough? If the Islanders miss, would they trade Noah Dobson? Noah Dobson's really good. There's a question asked to the panel. I didn't hear the answers because I had the game on mute. But there's a question to the panel last night. Who would you rather have, Evan Bouchard or Noah Dobson? It's an easy answer for me, Noah Dobson. He's a better player all around. And he brings as much offensively as Evan Bouchard, in my opinion. Would the Islanders part with him? And would the Islanders want to pay Bill Nylander what he wants to make? They gave Bo Horvat a pile of money, more than I thought he would get from them. I didn't think he'd stay. They might look in the mirror and say, we still need to score goals, which they do. Averaging 2 goals per game in 7 of their 14 this year. Not good. Would Ottawa trade one of their defensemen in division? I doubt the Leafs want to do that, send Nylander there, but Chychrun, Shabbat, Sanderson, Bueller. Seth Jones, likely not. Colton Parayko from St. Louis. I don't think this is going to happen, but I think if you're not going to sign him, if you come to the conclusion that the number is too high and you're not going to keep him, I don't think you're going to win with your defense score because we've been through this. So the process of elimination is if we're not going to re-sign him, if our D aren't good enough to win a Stanley Cup in an East that is completely wide open because there aren't that many good teams, you'll hear from other analysts that it's so competitive, the Eastern Conference. I disagree with that, and I think it's just wrong, quite frankly. I don't think it's that competitive. I think it's a lot of mediocrity. You're telling me it's a competitive conference because the Detroit Red Wings are third in the Atlantic? Maybe that should tell you that the rest of the teams just aren't that fucking good. That Montreal has as many points as the Tampa Bay Lightning? Maybe Tampa just can't defend. Just a thought. New Jersey. No, the Flyers the Flyers are 7-1 because Buffalo gives up a lot of goals. And Ottawa can't get a save. And you go through, it's a lot of teams that just aren't that freaking good. Rangers have been fantastic. Much to my surprise. Because I didn't think they'd be this good. And Boston having one regulation loss at November 14th is staggering. But the East isn't that competitive. It's mediocre. The West, the top end of the Western Conference, those are some good teams. No doubt about it. Dallas, Colorado, Vegas, Vancouver, LA. Then you see the Winnipeg Jets, who are third in the Central. Good on them. Good team. Playing hard. They've had their ups and downs, but Hellebuck's been good. Kyle Connor had a hell of a night over the weekend. The Dallas Stars, 10-3-1, they are as dangerous a team as anyone. I don't want to play them. They can score goals, they're physical, they're fast, they get good goaltending. They went to a conference final last year, so they know what it's like. A really good coach in Peter DeBoer. Colorado's had their ups and downs to start this year. They got a win last night, which was good for them. They've been allowing a lot of scoring chances. They've been incredibly loose in their own zone. I still pick them to get to the Stanley Cup final, but Dallas is right there. And obviously Vegas has been phenomenal. But I just thought we'd go through that because I don't buy into it. That the East is that competitive. I don't think it is. For Toronto, for Carolina, I was wrong. I'll throw them in. The Rangers. And I'm still iffy, but I'll say the Bruins because I can't. They're still there. They should not fear Buffalo or Washington or Tampa or Florida. Because you should feel that you're better than. I still think Florida's a dangerous team. Florida comes back healthy, they could be a threat in the East, 100%. But it's not competitive because it's full of great teams. It's competitive because it's full of a lot of mediocre teams. And the good teams like Toronto, like Carolina, have stumbled out of the gate. I think they'll right the ship. But getting to that next place requires more. And with the current team that Toronto has, I don't think they're going to do it. I still think Carolina needs more scoring. Florida could get back to the Stanley Cup final because they have the same team. Bobrovsky's good. If Carolina could get another top-end scorer, if Toronto could get a really solid defenseman, they could get to a Stanley Cup final. Until those teams do it, I'll have my doubts about them. Tonight in the NHL, you got Penguins at the Blue Jackets, Bruins at Buffalo, Calgary at Montreal, Vegas and Washington. They visited old Uncle Joe at the White House yesterday. Ducks, Preds, Coyotes at the Stars, Devils, Jets. Fun game. Lightning, Blues, and Panthers, Sharks to close out the evening. So a loaded night in the NHL. Let's pivot to UFC quickly. We talked UFC yesterday. The big UFC 295 pay-per-view from over the weekend. We have UFC Vegas 82 coming up this weekend at the UFC Apex. We got some news also this weekend about the pay-per-view in Toronto. I mentioned Sean Strickland, Dricus du Plessis in the main event. You got Raquel Pennington, Buena Silva for the vacant bantamweight title. In the co-main, Jan Blachowicz, Alexander Rakic returning from a year-long injury to his knee at light heavyweight. Second meeting between these two guys. First fight ended with the injury, so Rakic gets a chance to redeem himself. That's fun. Also on that card, Arnold Allen, Miloslav Ivalov at bantamweight is an awesome fight. These two guys, two of the best, at featherweight, pardon me, two of the best guys in the division, two guys that want a chance to get it. Alexander Volkanovski eventually. I think that's loaded. A couple Canadians announced: Charles Jourdain, Sean Woodson at featherweight. Also, welterweight Mike Malott, who I think is the best Canadian currently in the UFC. He gets Neil Magny, his first fight against a ranked opponent. So an opportunity for him to get a ranking by his name, to be in the mix, to be regarded as one of the top contenders in, I think, the most loaded prospect division in the UFC, with guys like Ian Machado, Gary, and Sean Brady, and the guy and Rachmanov, the guys we've talked about. Dominic Reyes, former I think the guy that beat John Jones, light heavyweight Dominic Reyes against Carlos Ulberg. Reyes has lost his last number of fights. Brutal knockout from Yuri Prohaska. His last number of fights, he knocked out by Ryan Spann, knocked out by Prohaska, knocked out by Blachowicz. And that 5-round decision loss to John Jones where I thought he won. Ulberg's a surging contender. He's a fun fight. I like that matchup. Middleweight, Chris Curtis against Marc-André Barriault. Another opportunity for a Canadian to get a ranking by his name. Chris Curtis, number 14 at middleweight. Barriault has been in some big fights, had some opportunities. This is his biggest yet. Brad Katona, winner of the Ultimate Fighter, will get back in there against Garrett Armfield, which should be a fun fight at bantamweight. So UFC 297 in Toronto actually looks like a good card, way better than the card that Vancouver got back in June, so I think it'll sell some tickets. But yesterday on the MMA Hour, John Kavanagh, head coach of Conor McGregor and numerous other fighters, he's also the head coach of Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker, light heavyweight, just fought in Abu Dhabi, ruled a no contest. Well, Kavanagh announced on January 13th, the first event of 2024, UFC Vegas 83 at the Apex. Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker will headline that event with a rematch 5-round fight. Talked about this briefly yesterday, but I think these two guys could be in the mix for the title shot next. I think they're that good. Both these two guys have been on the precipice of being a champion. Johnny Walker's beaten Anthony Smith. He's beaten some great guys. Ankalaev, I thought he was champion when he beat Jan Blachowicz, but he didn't get that ruling, and then the Johnny Walker, tough break for him, but they will rematch. They will settle this. And I'm all for this. This was the fight to make. This was a great fight in Abu Dhabi. It's a great main event, 5 rounds at the Apex. And this is what the UFC can do. It's going to be an Apex card, no crowd really, like we'll see this weekend. But it's an awesome main event. You had some good fights to that card, and all of a sudden it makes it look better. She'll get this, UFC Vegas 83, and then the following weekend you will get UFC 297 in Toronto. But that's great. Like I said, Brendan Allen, Paul Craig this weekend at middleweight is a good fight. Brendan Allen, surging contender. His only 2 losses as a pro came when he took fights on short notice. So when he has a full training camp, he's as dangerous as anybody. Finally, let's go to the NBA. Haven't talked to NBA in a minute. Raptors came back from a 23-point deficit last night to beat the awful Wizards. Celtics got another win. They're 8-2 in their first 10. They are a well-oiled machine. They look fantastic. They had a 2-game losing skid, and they lost to the Sixers. But the Sixers only have 1 loss. They'll play their 10th game of the season tonight when they play the red-hot Indiana Pacers. Watching early, Tyrese Maxey without James Harden has been awesome for the Clippers. He's been so dynamic. He's been doing everything and more. Joel Embiid seems to love to play with him, and the Clippers just have the 76ers have a better vibe about their team. Tobias Harris on a contract year is shooting better than he ever has from 3-point range. They are a threat. Now, James Harden was traded to the Clippers. because he hates Daryl Morey and he wanted out of Philadelphia to go to Los Angeles, where he could play with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Well, since he was traded to the Clippers, the team is 0-4. Losing to the Nets, the Knicks, the Grizzlies, who only have 2 wins on the season. And James Harden played on Sunday, and he was a minus 28 in a 4-point loss. They have no chemistry. They don't seem to know who wants to have the ball, what to do when they don't have it. They don't have great spacing. Thank God for Zubac, but this team is hard to watch. They aren't fun, and they are in complete panic mode in Los Angeles. Meanwhile, LeBron James is playing pretty damn well for the Lakers, despite the fact that they're off to a slower start than I expected. But they'll be fine. They will round into the form in no time. But the Clippers currently are 11th in the Western Conference. They would not be in a play-in situation. 3-6, tied with the Portland Trailblazers. I don't think it's going to work. I never thought it was going to work. You bring in all these guys and they all play the same damn position. They're all a 2. Harden can say he's a point guard, but he's really not. The best version of this team is James Harden finding open shots for his teammates. But then what's Russell Westbrook going to do? Because Russell Westbrook is not a good shooter. You do not want him just standing there floating up 3-pointers, because that's not going to win you many games. Paul George is a defensive player. Is he two-way? I don't know. But you're 0-4. Your team looks like a complete disaster. And oh, wait, you get the Denver Nuggets tonight in Denver. That's fun. Denver, who started 8-2 in the season as well, they lost to Houston on Sunday. And Houston Rockets have been one of the great stories as well. I thought Houston would be better. I didn't think they'd be this good this soon. 6-3. Trailing only the Timberwolves, the Mavericks, and the Nuggets. Mavericks have been a great story as well. They're putting up crazy numbers, crazy points. On Sunday, Kyrie Irving had 35. Luka had 30 and 9. 11 for 18, 13 for 20. 7 for 10 from 3 for Kyrie, 4 for 9 for Luka. Tim Hardaway off the bench. Jermichael Green. Derek Lively's been a good addition at center. This team's putting up points. Pelicans can score as well, but not like the Mavericks. They play the Pelicans again tonight in the play-in tournament. Play-in tournament games are on Tuesdays and Fridays. Don't ask me who's leading the play-in tournament, because I don't know. Oh, it's actually on here, on this site. The Raptors haven't played a play-in tournament game yet. Celtics have. Nets are 1-1. Bulls are 0-1. Grizzlies are 0-2. Thunder are 0-2, which is so stupid. Ugh. But yeah, it's a lot of logjam currently. Knicks are 5-5. The Raptors are 5-5. The Bulls are teetering. They're a team to watch if they want to sell off DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine. I think they're going to get some calls. And then the Wizards are dreadful at 2-8. The Pistons are 2-9, and they're paying Monty Williams $15 million a year. And that team's no better. Cade Cunningham at 10 points with 4 for 15 shooting in his last game. And those are Wemby type shot numbers, and that just can't happen. Victor Wembanyama, struggling. Yeah, we get it. He's a rookie. He needs to figure it out. He had a really rough game at the Garden. He didn't play particularly well on Sunday against the Miami Heat. But it's going to take some time for him to figure it out. Cade Cunningham's been in the league a minute. He missed all last year. I don't care. He played in his rookie year. I didn't expect Pistons to be a great team, but you expect them to be better than they have been. But Cade's averaging 16 points a game, 36 minutes, shooting 29% from three, 40% from the field. That's just not good enough. He's still got a lot of talent, but I mean, Detroit, again, not a good team. James Wiseman's hardly playing any minutes. Jaden Ivey, who was last year's first-round pick, he only played 11 minutes. That is not going to be good. He's going to be wanting out. Thompson's been pretty good, but he can't shoot. Asor, the other Thompson's been very good for the Houston Rockets. We got play-in tournament games tonight in the NBA. We got full NHL slate. College basketball is back. We got ATP World Tour Finals in tennis. Djokovic playing Jannik Sinner this afternoon. Holger Rune has already defeated Stefanos Tsitsipas this morning. Good to have college basketball back. I was watching a bit of that last night as well. Zach Edey, the Canadian, dominating for Purdue in a win against Xavier. I don't know if he'll ever make the NBA, but he's a damn good college basketball player, despite the fact that they were out in the first round last year in the NCAA tournament against a 16 seed, only the second team ever to do that. But they beat a Xavier team who went to the Elite Eight. Xavier, a good school, good coach. So impressive for Purdue. The University of Miami's undefeated. Michigan looks good. Kansas is the betting favorite. But lots happening in the world of sports. So much to monitor, so much to talk about. But tonight we should have some good slate, some good stuff. For whatever reason, the Calgary Flames Montreal Canadiens game is speaking to me. Because the Calgary Flames and their debacle of a season and the way that they've handled their business, just not the way I would have done it. But we'll see how it goes. That's it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. Hope you all have a great rest of your Tuesday. Take care. Talk to you. Just to the point.